On May 19th, 2018, the world tuned in to what looked like a fairy tale. A biracial American actress was marrying into Britain's royal family. The chapel glowed. The choir sang "Stand By Me." The streets overflowed with flags and cheers. For many, it was sold as a moment of unity, a symbol of progress, a sign that the crown, the same one that once ruled over Africa, the Caribbean, and India, was finally opening its doors to the modern world. Beneath the diamonds and titles, something deeper was unfolding. A quiet war between two histories, one of empire and whiteness, and one of blackness, survival, and visibility. To some, the ceremony looked like inclusion. To millions of Black viewers, it looked like confrontation. Because what we were watching wasn't just a bride entering a palace. It was a 21st century Black woman walking into a 1,200-year-old white institution and daring to stand tall. Before Meghan ever walked down the aisle, the British media had already written her storyline. "From cotton slaves to royalty," screamed one headline. Another traced her family to the dirt-poor Deep South, focusing on her great-great-great-grandmother's life in slavery. The press made Meghan's Black ancestry front-page news, but her accomplishments, graduating from Northwestern University, starring on Suits, launching global charities, were treated like footnotes. For many in Britain, Meghan's Blackness came first, and respect came later, if ever. By contrast, Prince Harry's background was rarely scrutinized, yet his family lineage is steeped in empire. His great-great-great-grandmother was Queen Victoria, who called colonial subjects savages and ruled over 1/5 of the world's population. Under her reign, Britain looted India, starved Bengal, annexed South Africa, and violently crushed resistance in Nigeria, Jamaica, Kenya, and beyond. She was named Empress of India in 1876, a title that symbolized white dominance over brown and Black lives. So when Meghan entered the royal family, her ancestors' enslavement was splashed across the tabloids. But Harry's ancestors' colonial conquests were never questioned. Nobody asked what it meant for the descendant of an enslaved woman to marry into the same family that once enslaved her people. Nobody asked what it meant for the British monarchy, which directly profited from the transatlantic slave trade, to suddenly brand itself as modern and inclusive through one Black woman's presence. This dynamic has a name. Scholars call it racial framing, a system that decides how different races are portrayed and treated in public life. As sociologist Joe R. Fegan explains, racial framing is the process by which society defines and limits how people of different races are perceived and treated. It centers whiteness as neutral and universal, while casting Blackness as deviant, threatening, or in need of justification. In practice, that means Black people are often reduced to their trauma, their struggles, or their supposed failures, while white institutions like the monarchy or the press are treated as objective, benevolent, and beyond reproach. The result? Meghan's ancestry is dissected. Her tone, ambition, and presence are debated endlessly. Meanwhile, the institution she married into, one historically funded by slavery and colonialism, is left largely unexamined. Racial framing doesn't just distort how we see people, it protects power by shifting the spotlight away from it. And Britain has long pretended racism is a foreign problem, something that happens over there. In America, in the South, with police and Confederate flags, but in the lead up to the wedding, something shifted. The microaggressions, the headlines. The racism became harder to ignore. There were headlines framing Meghan as a threat to royal tradition, focusing on her background, her mother, and where she grew up. But the most explicit attack came in early 2018, just months before the wedding, when Jo Marnie, the girlfriend of UKIP leader Henry Bolton, was exposed for sending racist texts. She said Meghan would taint the royal family and called the idea of a Black royal baby a disaster. She wasn't a fringe troll. She was dating the head of a political party in Britain, and the press had no problem publishing her views. Suddenly, the UK couldn't hide behind politeness or claim racism was just an American issue. Meghan didn't just walk into Windsor Castle. She walked into the heart of a nation still struggling to confront its colonial past. And in doing so, she shattered the myth that Britain had moved beyond race. She exposed what many Black people already knew, that under the gold carriages and royal crests, there was still an empire, just with better PR.
The late Dr. Martin Luther King once said, and I quote, "We must discover the power of love, the redemptive power of love."
When Bishop Michael Curry took the pulpit at Harry and Meghan's wedding, he didn't deliver a quiet blessing. He delivered a sermon rooted in centuries of Black resistance. He quoted Dr. King, invoked slavery, and spoke of love as a moral force for justice, not just affection, but accountability. This was not the usual royal fare. Curry's sermon drew from African American church traditions, rhythmic, declarative, emotionally charged. To a global audience, it was electrifying. But inside St. George's Chapel, it was met with discomfort. Some British outlets labeled him offbeat or eccentric. Several tabloids falsely claimed he rambled for 30 minutes. In reality, he spoke for just 14. But the issue wasn't length. It was the style, the volume, the refusal to edit himself down to make white Britain comfortable. Royal commentator Angela Levin later admitted the sermon made her uneasy. She called it too American and described Meghan as a megawatt attention grabber. But what made her uncomfortable wasn't noise. It was visibility, Black visibility, in a space that rarely has to make room for it. The reactions were caught on camera. Zara Tindall with her mouth hanging open, Princess Beatrice and Eugenie smirking, Kate Middleton rolling her eyes toward Camilla, Prince William laughing under his breath. These were not subtle responses. They were textbook microaggressions, playing out in real time, broadcast around the world. Now imagine the inverse. Imagine Doria Ragland smirking during the Archbishop of Canterbury's sermon. Imagine Meghan's guests laughing through the Queen's hymns. Would the media have called that awkward, or would they have called it disrespect? This wasn't about theology. It was about who is allowed to speak boldly in a space built to contain them. The royals weren't praised for engaging with the sermon. They were praised for tolerating it, as if sitting through a Black preacher's words was an endurance test, not a moment of reflection. The press framed their stiff expressions as dignified restraint, but Bishop Curry wasn't disruptive. He didn't hijack the moment. He reframed it. He reminded everyone watching that love without justice is just sentiment, and justice without truth is a myth. He didn't confront royal tradition with chants or placards. He challenged it through scripture, historical memory, and the weight of his presence. And in doing so, he exposed what so many wanted to ignore, that even in a moment marketed as inclusive, the discomfort of Black expression was still treated as a disruption, not a contribution. If this resonated with you, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to go deeper, with full articles, receipts, and unfiltered analysis, head to the link in the description. We publish what others won't.